Morning guys, Real 111T here. This video is ostensibly for Mark Rogers, aka Eat Carbs. Told him I'd do a review of my Lansky set that I've had for many years, probably since the mid-90s. Talk about the pros and cons. I generally like it, but I believe it does have some limitations in terms of the size of blade you can work on with it, and also just some practical sort of limitations as to how it works. I got this because I didn't want to be screwing up sharpening, my everyday carry knives. I didn't want to have to be carrying a knife around that was all scratched up, So I picked this kit up. Now, what you see here is this isn't a kit that you buy out of the box. Basically, these two are add-ons. These two stones, and then this is basically what the kit came with, and 3 of the rods. This is the coarse, the medium, and the fine stones, which was a cheap option at the time. And then, they sold them in a generic case, so I added on. This is actually an ultra fine stone, and then this is a fine diamond that I added on. And it's a good thing I added this one on because, I've had this thing for many years. The only issue that I've ever had is with this fine hone. You see, the stone came unglued. Now, to be fair, this didn't happen for, 10 years. And I use the thing pretty regularly. But, as I said, I picked this up, and now this is a fine diamond hone. It's a little coarser than that one is, but in the sequence of it all, I basically just end up leaving this one out. I kept it. I tried to contact Lansky. I believe they're based in Buffalo, which is fairly close by to me. I never got a response back from them. I don't know if I caught them on a bad day or contacted the wrong person, but. So basically the system is made up of this sort of guide unit. Try and keep in camera because I'm not hand holding it. But hopefully you won't get seasick. And then there's the stones, the hones they call them, and these rods. Okay, now whenever I sit down to set this up, I'm not going to actually sharpen a knife here, but I'm going to show you how to set it up and give you my thoughts on the setup of it. I consider basically my Leatherman to be required to have around. Now, I don't know if you can see this metal right here. This tightening knob is metal on this one. The new ones I've noticed in the literature show a plastic knob here. Hopefully the threads are still metal. See, one of the issues with this is that this unit is made out of like an aluminum alloy. Okay, and I don't know. It's kind of stressful on it. So this one is no longer really finger tightenable. I can move it a little bit, but I can't loosen it any really further than this. So there's that. You've got basically the range. You've got the 2 different tightening things that you have to do. There's a screw and this like knurled knob, and ostensibly you want this to be loose when you mount the blade into here. So, I've done this forward here. Basically, you mount this in here. The beginning of it's kind of a fiddly little process. What I do is I hold it there, and then you screw this one down. The idea of this is you want this to be marked, or you want this to be mounted in there rock solid, and just screwing this down really wouldn't do it. Then you have to come over here. Be careful because the knife isn't that dull. And tighten this. I want to get this to show you how it actually should be, so bear with me for a second. Yeah, it's a little too much even. Basically, you want this to be kind of parallel. I might have this tightened a little too much. This space here should conform to like the thickness of the blade. This is how wide this space should be. Okay, and then basically you test it. Make sure you can't flex it at all, because what you don't want is you don't want the blade to start moving around while you're sharpening. And then the other point is that all your tests you do on this while you're sharpening it, you leave this on here. You don't take it off and put it back on, okay, because it'll screw things up. Your angle will be different when you do that. And the whole point of this thing is to keep your angle the same for every pass. Now, this is actually a good example because I've actually sharpened this knife on the system. You got these holes here. I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can get that to focus on there. Yeah, you can see there's numbers there, which are ostensibly the degree angles, 30, 25, 20, and 17, that you're going to end up with. Now, I want to point something out here. Okay, so, all right, well, let's get this assembled here. That those angles are kind of arbitrary. They have to be based on a certain width blade, which I don't know. I always tighten this here too, because you don't want this thing moving, and it locks in there pretty good. But basically, your angle on your edge, all right, has to do with not only what hole you put it in, but where the edge ends up. Okay, so if this blade is thicker, then the angle will be shallower, and if it's thinner, the angle will be steeper. There's no way around it. And there's definitely a lower limit as terms of the width of the blade you can use on this. You notice there's like a little brassing there. If your blade is really thin, what will happen is the stone will actually hang up on this thing. And what I'm talking about here is like, you know, those really tiny Swiss Army knives, the ones people put on their key rings. They have like 1 inch or 1 1/4 inch blade that's like, I don't know, maybe a little more than an eighth of an inch wide, those tiny little blades. A friend of mine asked me to sharpen it for him, and I couldn't do it with this. There's not really much blade there to sharpen, but... Okay, so this is your basic system. And this is what comes in the box, is the ability to do this. And then, you know, you would run it up. I'm not actually making contact with the blade, but you don't want to run it this way. You want to just run it this way. And you run it all up the radius of the blade, a certain number of passes, and then you flip the thing over and you do it on the other side. Okay. Now, a couple other limitations of this system, other than the size of the blade, is where you want to put this. You don't want to put it all the way choked down here, and you don't want to put it all the way up here. You have to imagine that the shape of the blade is important, and also the fact that this is basically tracing out a circle when it's going like this, okay? So you can kind of see what it did here to the tip of my blade. Let me see if I can focus it on there. And I don't know how big a deal this is. I mean, you see how it's kind of like curved the tip in a little bit, and that'll happen, and that's sort of a limitation. You have to be kind of careful where you put this on here. I mean, a sword peasant's kind of an ugly knife anyway, but so you can kind of minimize that. Now that also means that this is really no good for doing anything but, you know, like a standard kind of a shaped blade, you know, like a drop point or a clip point, something that where the edge shape is curved kind of this way. All right, if you put this on a Tonto, I don't know what you're going to get. Okay, I can give you another example, one I did years ago, and this, I never really carried this knife, but I felt the need for some reason to totally redo the edge. This is a buck Nighthawk, which is kind of weird. It's got kind of a cult following. There's some people who really, really love these things. This is an old one too. 650. I think that's the model number, but from what I understand, this is a stainless steel, and that's one of the reasons I never really carried it. I bought it when I was kind of in a knife collecting phase because it looks kind of cool, you know what I mean? It's really super thick. It's not quite a 1/4 inch thick. Well, maybe it is a 1/4 inch thick there at the spine. I'm not sure, and it feels good. You know, it's the sort of thing that appeals to the teenage me that was buying this thing. But this is pretty sharp, but you can kind of see here how the edge kind of spread out a little bit at the tip. Now, I don't know exactly where I had it, and also, this was a lot of work to do this. And like I said, I think I worked for days on this with this thing. So really, when you get into a larger blade, there's disadvantages, in terms of like the way it'll kind of spread that edge out at the tip, just because of the radius action of those. I mean, that's the only way the thing can work, basically. It's a little bit less on this side, so it's not quite even. So I don't know. I'm not planning on getting rid of this knife, and I can live with that. Some people might say, "Oh, you totally ruined that thing." Okay. So this is the basic system. Okay, and you just work it on both sides, and then you would graduate up into the finer and finer hones. One accessory that I picked up that I am definitely very pleased with, and you saw in that photo on the Pathfinder store, he had something similar. He had a bench mount. What this is a C-clamp. They call it a super C-clamp. Hopefully they still make it. Because if you're going to get one of these sets, this is what I would recommend you get. You could get the bench mount if you absolutely had to. Okay. But this will let you mount on various horizontal or vertical surfaces. Okay. If you go, I wouldn't put it on my dining room table here, but, if you're out and you're at that picnic table, you could definitely mount it on there. It's made out of aluminum. It won't mar it much. And then basically the way this works is you'd mount this on something, and then you take your thing here, and this really makes it a lot easier, than having to hand hold the thing while you're doing it. And this really is kind of a at-home kind of thing, or a base camp kind of thing. I don't think you'd carry this around with you in the field to freshen your knives up. Because, and then as I said, once you start doing it, you're doing it. I've used this set a lot, and I'm still on the original bottle of honing oil. So keep that in mind, that you don't necessarily need to run out and buy bazillions more bottles of honing oil. It seems like almost like a 3-in-1 oil would probably work, and you're only supposed to use that on the stones. Yeah. The diamond one, I guess you're not supposed to use the honing oil on. I have, but that's the other thing is mix and matching in this as I have. It's impossible to stop the oil from getting on something like this, because once you start using it with the coarser ones, it's on the blade, and it's gonna get on there unless you're cleaning it off in between each pass or each hone. Now I will say that this ultrafine stone definitely does add something to the kit. If this one is a little bit coarser than the fine stone, this one definitely makes up for it, and this one kind of shines the edge up there a little bit, gives it that kind of a mirror shine. And so that looks cool, but it probably does add something in terms of the edge retention. The smoother that is, the easier it'll slide through stuff, and less it'll get dulled down. But so I know for a fact that you're carrying something similar to this. You got a clipper. This is one of my brand new out of my backup kits companions. Now this is kind of problematic on the Lansky set because this has a fixed bevel. Okay, regardless of what this angle, and I've never actually tried to mount one of these on here, because the whole reason of getting this, as far as I was concerned, after reading about it in Cody Lundine's book, 98.6 Degrees, was that you can sharpen this in the field with just a stone very easily, and I've never seen a reason to do anything different. So I picked up some of these. My local Kmart was selling them for $10, so I bought like 3 or 4 of them. I already had 1 or 2 of them, so I think I got like 5 of these things now in various kits. But this is a Smith's hone. I think it's like $15 at Walmart. So it shows you why Walmart's ahead of Kmart. For some reason, Kmart needed to sell all of theirs really fast. But this has just got a real simple coarse and fine sides. And with these, you just kind of tilt it till you can feel the edge there, and then push. Okay, and that seems like it's a fiddly process, but once you start doing it, it's not. you know, and you can really freshen one of these knives up really easily in the field and without all this complication, you know. Um, and you're not going to scratch this part of the blade up. This part's going to end up looking scratched invariably, you know, because you're not using the grinding wheel that they use to sharpen this thing. So that's just some, I guess, some street cred for your knife. You know, this one has none right now, but you know, maybe if I come over here, where'd it go? You know, if I grab my Triflex here, you can see, you know, it's got a little patina on it, but you can see a little bit of a kind of like scratching right on the edge here. But this whole thing is the edge, you know. So this one's definitely been sharpened with one of these. So I mean, there's lots of different options. I would say the Lansky set, really, its strong point is for knives in about this size range. Kind of a mid-size folder is good. And it works really well. I love sharpening the carbon steel. You know, carbon steel just sharpens. It's a joy to sharpen compared to some of the harder stainless steels. But yeah, this is basically the setup. This is what you get. In that other video, or not the other video, in that photograph, I think what you were looking at. These things are all color-coded, and you noticed he had a gold one, and then some of the other colors were different than these colors. I believe what he had was the diamond set. And if I was to do it over again, I probably would get the diamond set. I don't think I was really hip to it at the time as to what, you know, what the advantages of a diamond hone were. Now, you can, basically that it'll last forever, you know, that would not be, hopefully they've got a way to fix their diamond hones onto their handles better. You know, this is just, I don't know if I can tilt that. You can just see the glue. There's just a couple of spots of glue there holding this. And the trouble is, you know, with the fine one, is this very smooth texture, you know. So it doesn't surprise me. And like I said, this isn't like something, oh, out of the box, this thing was junk. This is like 8 or 10 years down the road of having used it that this happened. So, you know, I don't know really what I would expect from them. And at that point, I already had this. This is not something I bought as a reaction to that. You know, I thought I'd give the diamond ones a try, and I figured that if you're going to get one, you know, this shows my naivete. If you're going to get one, you should get the fine one, right? Probably not, because the one that does the most work is the coarse one. You know, in retrospect, I probably should have got a coarse diamond. You know, and I thought about, you know, picking a couple more up, but, you know, I would probably, at this point, I would probably buy another set. You know, I mean, I'm sure if I don't like the construction of this thing on the new set, you know, I would just continue to use this. But probably value-wise, it probably would be what I would want to do at this point. So, yep, I hope that was a little overview, just show you kind of what's in the box and how it works. It's not a bad system. You know, I recommend it. There's other systems that have copied this since the time. I don't have any experience with them, so I can't really talk about them, pros or cons. But this system has served me well. It sharpened a lot of my everyday carry knives, you know, that I didn't want to look ugly, despite the fact that I started liking everyday carry knives that were ugly. Yeah. So, but definitely a Leatherman, something like that. You need a screwdriver and, you know, the needle nose there to kind of tighten it down right. And hopefully that helps you decide whether or not to get one. Thanks for watching. Oh, one more thing. Sorry. I thought of one point I want to make. So I did talk about the size limitations. You can see this is probably a 7-inch knife blade. I've never actually measured it, but this is about the limit. I would never go any bigger than this. I've used this to sharpen my pilot survival knives, one of them at least, and you know, I really don't recommend it for fixed blades at all. You know, and definitely for nothing larger than that. You know, a machete, right out. I would never try that on that parang. The parang has a straighter edge. I don't even think, you know, that it would be the proper device for that. You know, something like this, you know, you can use to freshen anything. Honestly, I've been looking at that work sharp lately. I don't have one of them yet, but um, my local hardware store that I really like going to has one on display in their Bradford, PA store, and basically you can try it out. So I might give that a try, and they're not horribly expensive, compared to a set like this. So I might just go that route. Now that obviously has other disadvantages. I mean, obviously that has to be somewhere where there's electricity. This has the advantage of, even though I consider this to be an at-home kit, you could carry this into the wilderness with you, and there'd be nothing stopping you from using it. You might even be able to clamp this thing onto some kind of a log or something, and stabilize it that way. But yeah, all right. So I just want to make that point. Upper limit, lower limit. Really, the key size is something like this size. I picked this one up. Not this blade profile, but this size is good. Okay. All right. All right. Goodbye for real this time.